almost no one was spending their time in high-user virtual spaces, such as Fortnite or Roblox. In 2021, there's over 500 million people on a daily basis who participate in these shared social spaces with tens or 100 plus other people. Hi, my name is Matthew Ball. I'm here to speak about the metaverse. Technology often produces innovations that surprise us, but more frequently, we see innovations that bring to life ideas, in particular ideas from science fiction and fantasy that have been long expected. The most obvious and omnipresent of those around us today is that of the metaverse. It's not new that individuals spend time in virtual worlds. In the 1970s, multi-user dungeons or multi-user hallucinations emerged, which allowed individuals to congregate in virtual space, but only via text. In the 1980s, Lucasfilm from George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, produced the game Habitat, the first time in which users could use a computer to congregate in virtual space in 2D. Throughout the 1990s and then early 2000s, we saw ongoing advances in virtual spaces, the ability to create a virtual economy, to create everything from virtual shoes to a virtual stock exchange. But in particular, we saw the ability for humanity itself to move into these spaces. Today, in 2021, fantasy has started to feel very real. We saw one of the most remarkable increases in the space, which stemmed not just from the frequency with which we use the term, but in consumer behavior. 5 years ago, almost no one was spending their time in high user or high concurrent user virtual spaces, such as Fortnite or Roblox. Today in 2021, there's over 500 million people on a daily basis who participate in these shared social spaces with tens or 100 plus other people. In 2015, less than $5 billion was spent on virtual 3D goods. Last year, that number eclipsed 50 billion. This year, that number is likely to be 120 billion. We have seen brands and franchises globally rush in towards virtual spaces. Today, the global economy is roughly $85 trillion. By varying estimates at the United Nations, up to 25% and perhaps 15% at the low end of that is digital. Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, believes that the metaverse economy will exceed that of the physical world. Others believe that by 2040, roughly half of the global economy will be connected to virtual spaces, a doubling of today's digital economy. What does that mean for founders and startups and other entrepreneurs? The truth of the matter is that we see a perpetual shift in internet technologies and computing technologies, which leads to every industry being disrupted over time. When I speak to entrepreneurs today, I tell them two things. Number one is to not expect stagnation, not to believe that today's largest companies are going to succeed in this new era. One of the reasons for that is how hard it is to predict exactly the nature of what technological change is going to produce. When we take a look at Microsoft, they lost the mobile era, not just because the iPhone was an astonishing product, but because they made specifically three fundamental mistakes about the internet era in mobile computing. They misunderstood monetization. They thought that was going to be from selling an operating system, as they did in the PC era. And instead, it was the App Store. They also believed that mobile phones would require keyboards, physical keyboards, but in fact, it was touchscreens. And perhaps most importantly, Microsoft believed that smartphones would be a secondary device to most daily users, and in fact, they were the primary one. Those three changes were not obvious in 1995 or in 2005. Those who understood the potency of mobile communications and mobile computing, the internet at large, did not agree on those three premises, but believing in change led to disruption. This is one of the reasons why when we take a look at the potential leaders of tomorrow, companies like Unity or Roblox or Epic, all less than $45 billion, we still believe that they can become larger than some of the trillion and $2 trillion companies globally. At minimum, we should understand the metaverse as a slow progression through which more time, labor, leisure, spend, and wealth, as well as happiness and relationships, shift into virtual worlds. That means more of human existence will shift to virtual worlds. It also means that more social problems will shift to virtual worlds. And in fact, as many of us look at the online world today, we struggle with how many human problems we have not yet solved. Data rights, data security, misinformation, radicalization, platform power, regulation. We don't have good handles on those problems today. That is a threat to the future in which they will become harder. But it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity because just as the metaverse disrupts who the leading companies are, it provides an opportunity for philosophical realignment and reassessment, for leaders to come into the technology space with different premises. And so as I talk to entrepreneurs, I look for three things. Number one is an expectation for substantial shift. Number two is to see that in their product, they are not just saying what happens to a function X or Y in a virtual space, what is WhatsApp but in the metaverse, but instead for fundamental premises to change. But most importantly, I look for a philosophical perspective that sees the metaverse not just as a new thing, not just an opportunity to replace today's leaders, but perhaps an idealistic opportunity for a better world. I truly believe that. And I think when you look at how society has shifted over the past 15 years, yes, the largest technology companies have become stronger, but the user, consumer, and governmental recoil to tech giants that do not live up to their reputation or expectation, do not prove themselves to be in the user interests, they no longer support those companies. And instead they support those companies that they believe will provide a stronger future. Thank you, everyone.